Madam President, Foreign Minister Wu, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. 2 years back, I hesitated to attend this conference, lest that provoke China. But since then, as you know, Beijing has torn up the one country, two systems treaty on Hong Kong. It's put upwards of 1 million Uyghurs into concentration camps. It's boosted cyber spying on its own citizens, cancelled popular personalities in favour of a cult of the Red Emperor, brutalised Indian soldiers in the Himalayas, coerced other claimants in its eastern seas, and flown ever more intimidatory sorties against Taiwan. It's weaponised trade, especially against Australia, with our barley, wine and coal exports all stopped on spurious grounds. And its embassy has published 14 demands, essentially that we become a tributary state that no self-respecting country could accept. The trigger for all this was politely seeking an impartial inquiry into the origins of the Wuhan virus. So this year I'm here, having concluded that China's belligerence is all self-generated. But things, I should stress, weren't always this bad, and even now need not go from bad to worse. The Chinese economic miracle has lifted 500 million people from the third world to the middle class in scarcely a generation, probably the greatest and fastest advance in human well-being in all history, as Deng Xiaoping and his successors made room for the commercial instincts of the Chinese people. The whole world has benefited from China's productivity, including Australia, which supplied the iron ore, the coal and the gas to help make it happen. My government finalised China's first free trade deal with another G20 economy, in part because we thought that would help to build trust between China and the democracies. As Prime Minister, I was prepared to join the Chinese-led Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank because I thought that would help to give China a stake in a rules-based global order. So for Beijing, surely there's a lesson here. The more freedom its people have, the better they've done and the more respect China has gained. Be a friend, that experience shows, and you'll have friends. Be a bully, and you'll only have clients who can't wait to escape. Now, much has changed in just 6 years, but it's not Australia's goodwill towards the people of China, about 1 million of whom are now Australians and making a fine contribution to our country. Australia has no issue with China. We welcome trade, investment and visits, just not further hectoring about being the chewing gum on China's boot. Now, a fortnight back, Professor Victor Gao, a senior Beijing foreign policy analyst and former translator for Chairman Deng, directly threatened Australians. Do you want to be a target for a possible nuclear war? He said, in response to our decision to acquire nuclear-powered but not armed submarines. So if the drums of war can be heard in our region, as an official of ours has noted, it's not Australia that's beating them. The only drums we beat are for justice and freedom. Freedom for all people in China and in Taiwan to make their own decisions about their lives and their futures. But that's not how China sees it, as its growing belligerence towards Taiwan shows. sensing that its relative power might have peaked with its population ageing, its economy slowing, and its finances creaking, it is quite possible that Beijing could lash out disastrously quite soon. Our challenge is to try to ensure that the unthinkable remains unlikely and that the possible does not become the probable. That's why Taiwan's friends are so important now, to stress that Taiwan's future should be decided by its own people and to let Beijing know that any attempt at coercion would have incalculable consequences. As we know, this is not the world's only flashpoint. There's Israel, never not under existential threat, and the Ukraine, menaced by the new Tsar. But nowhere is the struggle between liberty and tyranny more stark than across the Taiwan Strait. Now, in 7 decades, Taiwan has grown from an impoverished dictatorship to a prosperous democracy. For a long time in Taiwan, as in China, there was thought to be a trade-off between liberty and prosperity, with people having to sacrifice their freedom or their wealth. For a long time, it was assumed that no dictatorship could evolve without mayhem. Yet Taiwan proves that authoritarian governments can liberalise, and they can do so without sacrificing prosperity or unleashing anarchy. Economic growth here since 1990 has averaged 5%, and you Taiwanese are now the 15th richest people in the world in purchasing power terms. Let me say, this is simply a stellar performance. Prosperity plus freedom, a model that the whole world should admire, not isolate. It is to the vast credit of successive Taiwanese leaders that power was steadily dispersed in a peaceful, orderly way, and to the credit of the Taiwanese people that they've used their freedoms responsibly to build an even richer and stronger island. As things stand, how could Taiwanese people ever want to exchange their current lives for an alternative that's poorer and less free? Why would they want to get caught up in the old arguments about who is the real China, especially as China, meanwhile, has taken a wrong turn? Maybe the Deng era market freedom was a short-term device to strengthen the country, a tactic like hide and bide. But China's leaders should have thought more deeply about this, because dropping the ruse has just united others against them. It's Beijing that's created the quadrilateral security partnership linking the United States, Japan, India and Australia, because it's been so unreasonable. And the more aggressive it becomes, the more opponents it will find. At our recent ministerial summit, both Australia and the United States stated their intent to strengthen ties with Taiwan, which we both declared is a leading democracy and a critical partner for both countries. The State Department has just affirmed that the US commitment to Taiwan is rock solid. I don't believe America could stand by and watch China swallowed up. I don't believe Australia should be indifferent to the fate of a fellow democracy of almost 25 million people. The US Secretary of State put it well earlier when he said of China that America would be competitive when it should be, collaborative when it can be, and adversarial when it must be. But provided it's real, collaboration is still possible and trust could yet be rebuilt. One will be the test. For the democratic world, that means a readiness to support this fellow democracy, including by welcoming Taiwan into the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And for China too, which can hardly succeed while it mistreats its own people and threatens its neighbours, that means scaling back the aggression, as it could never be admitted to the TPP while engaged in a trade war with Australia and in predatory trade all round. So, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, nothing is more pressing right now than solidarity with Taiwan. If we want a better world, hence my enthusiastic presence here today to stand with this island that's brave and free. I won't end urging you to stay safe. Rather, something nobler and higher. Stay free.